And I'm really looking forward to this day that we built out here. Really on a focus on just basically Bitcoiners trying to practice, use these best practices every day of the year.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm really excited to have some of our guests on because they have really been pushing Bitcoin self sovereign usage forward. One of our guests in particular, Wiz, has been chirping that every day is proof of keys day. Every day is a day for you to hold and maintain your own custody. Can you kind of talk philosophically as well as practically, like, why is it so important for Bitcoin that Bitcoin holders continue to manage their own keys and distribute, the pool of keys around individuals?
I mean, I think fundamentally, it's hard for people to grok at first this idea that you can actually secure your own wealth, that you can hold it yourself without a third party. And this is a key tenet of Bitcoin. This idea that you don't have to rely on a centralized third party to secure your money for you and secure your data for you. So that whole value prop of Bitcoin, this idea that you can be self-sovereign, that you can control your own keys, that you can use this permissionless money in a trust minimized environment and send money around the world without people controlling how you do that, is only possible if Bitcoiners practice self sovereignty and use these best practices. So I think uh, it's, obviously it's not going to be the easiest option. Personal responsibility will always be the more difficult option, but Bitcoin gives you that option, and ultimately we need at least a strong base of enthusiasts that are practicing those options, that are using Bitcoin to its full potential.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk about, the program that we have lined up. Matt and I worked closely in bringing together really kind of awesome experts who are very very neutral. That was one of our big goals here, was we wanted to take a very neutral stance on how Bitcoiners can best protect themselves and stay sovereign. So we are starting off with a conversation between Matt and Ben Kaufman. Ben is a young and fiery developer who is building one of the coolest open source wallets out there, Spectre Wallet. So super excited to have him chat with Matt coming up next. And then after that, I'm jumping on with an AMA with Alex Gladstein. So for all you freaks out there, for all the Bitcoiners in the chat, we are going to be monitoring the chat and bringing out those questions. And then after that, we had a conversation which Matt just recorded with Wiz and Catan. They were recording as Bitcoin was crossing 30K for the first time, and you can see it on the block clock behind them. I think, wait, you guys woke up super, super early just to match their time zones for this recording. How did that go, Matt?
That was a fun one. First of all, I love both of those guys. I think the listeners are going to really enjoy that conversation. But yeah, I was up at 7 in the morning on a Saturday to match their time zone, uh, while Bitcoin went through 30K, and we were just nerding out. We had absolutely no idea. You'll just see it ticking by on the clock behind me.
Dude, it's awesome, man. Bitcoin price right now is just the gift that keeps on giving. And after that piece of programming with Wiz and Catan, I am going to be doing a 14-minute video walking you guys through how to go from zero to full node multi-sig usage on a MacBook Pro. I know a lot of millennials out there had a MacBook Pro from college. It's a very common computer out there. And I mean, believe me, it could not be easier to use Bitcoin correctly. If you used a prune node, it really doesn't even take up much space on your computer. So it could be your main everyday driver. So that is a good piece of content there. And then we're going to close it out with our famous marbles on the Bitcoin Twitch stream. We're going to be giving away tons of Satoshis over on Twitch and playing marbles. So we have a great community over there. And if you have not checked out marbles on Bitcoin Magazine Twitch, you definitely need to. It's a lot of fun. So that's how we're going to be closing it out. And yeah, guys, really excited to be putting together this piece of content for Proof of Keys Day and for Bitcoin's 12th birthday. All right, and with that, let's roll into our commercial and our very first piece of content. You're live.
Yo, I think we're live now. Um, I do have you on the live chat. So, to all you listeners out there, if you want to participate, give us a shout out in the live chat and we'll see if we can get some of your questions answered. Anyway, happy birthday, Bitcoin. I'm Matt Odell. This is the 12th birthday of Bitcoin. January 3rd was the Genesis block. I'm joined here by Ben Kaufman. Uh, Young gun Bitcoin developer who's working on a project that I find very useful to every Bitcoiner called Spectre Wallet. How's it going, Ben?
Hey, doing good, doing great even. Yeah, happy Bitcoin birthday.
12 years. It's been a long fucking time. Bitcoin's come a long way. It's pretty crazy to see. Um, on this day, historically, for the last 3 years, a group of Bitcoiners have been participating in something called Proof of Keys Day, a day where Bitcoiners take full sovereignty of their coins if they haven't already, if they have their coins on an exchange or a third party. Um, I was wondering, and I think the listeners would be interested in hearing in what your thoughts are on that tradition and just the overall concept of self sovereignty in Bitcoin.
Yeah, sure. So on this tradition specifically, I think the idea in general is a good one, but it should be impractical because if you can if you can hold your own keys and hold your own Bitcoin, you should do this all the time. And if you can't, then you can't do this just for one day. You will probably screw something up. So I don't really see the idea of it really, to be honest. But it's another thing to celebrate, I guess, which is nice. And it reminds people to hold their own keys, which is also nice. And obviously about self-sovereignty more in general, of course, it's super important for Bitcoin to succeed, to stay resilient, to stay censorship resistant, to keep basically everything about Bitcoin. So if we want to keep 21 million guarantee, if we want to keep it censorship resistant, if we want to keep anything that makes Bitcoin what it is, we really need to hold our own keys, run our own nodes, just do it.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. So I mean, I think yeah, the exact explanation of proof of keys has always been like remove your keys on January 3rd and then like maybe send them right back in or something. But I think the bigger purpose and the bigger benefit is more of an education push. And I think that's what we're trying to focus on today. This idea that this is best practice. This is how people should practice it all the time. This is how people should use Bitcoin all the time. And I think especially on days like today where we've had massive price appreciation. I mean, it was $29,000 yesterday, and now it's over
Yeah.
$34,000. Who even knows what the price is right now? We have all these people coming in. We have all these newcomers coming in. This is when people flow into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
December has been an absolutely insane month in terms of price appreciation. So Ben, give the pitch to the new Bitcoiners. This is their first January 3rd. They have their money on an exchange. Maybe they went through a lengthy KYC process. They put their ID in. They have their Bitcoin. It's sitting in their balance, on a Cash App or a River or a Swan. What should they do? Why should they withdraw it? Give them that pitch.
Yeah, sure, I'll try my best. So basically, if you're not holding your own keys, you have no guarantee that you're holding Bitcoin. You can't really control it. You are trusting the exchange, the platform it's on. What you're holding is just an IOU for a Bitcoin. That IOU might be honored, it might not be honored. The state could, for some reason, say that the exchange has been doing, I don't know, some AML money laundering stuff, and then just take everything, and then your IOU is worth nothing. The exchange could go bankrupt for various reasons. It might be fractional reserve, or basically anything, and then you're just dependent on that exchange to hold your coins for you. You're just holding an IOU. So of course, if you're not holding Bitcoin, you're just holding an IOU, then you're not enjoying any of the benefits of Bitcoin. You're not enjoying the censorship resistance. So you're dependent on them to give you or not give you your coins, or allow you to withdraw to some address but not other address, or whatever, basically. So you're simply holding something which is not Bitcoin. It's just a matter of the price. If you really want to support Bitcoin, to be part of this thing, then you have to learn how to hold it yourself, learn how to use it. I know for some it might not be that easy, but this is what you have to do if you really want to be part of this movement.
I mean, I think what a lot of people don't realize here is when it comes to digital money, there really is no traditional money counterpart here. If you're using a traditional money app, I don't know what they have by you, but in America at least we have things like Venmo and PayPal and Cash App. You can't actually withdraw the money and hold the money yourself. You can't pull it out of the ATM. But with Bitcoin, it's a digital money that you're able to actually withdraw and hold in your own personal wallet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, um, basically, I think maybe with Americans, because it's usually easier for Americans, so you don't have that much censorship. Although there are obviously a lot of industries which do have. Uh, so for a lot of people, they don't really feel that sometimes, but around the world, I think a lot of people can really easily understand why holding your own money is extremely important. It happens all the time that somebody gets censored from platform like PayPal, like Venmo, whatever, and just loses their money, gets locked out. I think even in America, if I remember correctly, this happens quite a lot. So you can't really trust these companies. They can just decide that, okay, we don't like you, we don't like something that you're doing. We see platforms like YouTube censoring certain opinions, certain even political opinions or whatever. We just can't trust these guys with your money. You just have to protect it yourself, or it will be taken away.
So Bitcoin fixes this, but only if you use Bitcoin in a way that you're not trusting these third parties, that you're not trusting these custodians, because you can use Bitcoin in the same exact way that you mentioned. You can use it in a way where PayPal holds it for you, and if you do that, then you're restricted the same exact way you are with traditional digital money. So it's imperative for people to actually pull this Bitcoin off of these third party services and hold it themselves. Now, when we say hold it to themselves, um, obviously there's a gap here, right? And so I think the listeners would probably want to know, like, um, let's I guess let's explain what this means when they hold it themselves, right? So you have what is a private key and what is a public key, and how does that have anything to do with Bitcoin and storing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a private key is just a very, very large random number. A public key is just a very, very large number which is derived from that first private number. That's more or less what it is, in the kind of simplest way that I can think of it. You just need, with this private number, you can just prove that. Well, with this private number, you're just let me think how to simply explain it. Well, with this private number, it's basically a secret which you can use to prove that you know something, that you own something, basically that you own this Bitcoin. So this private number, you can use it to prove that you own some Bitcoin. It's basically Bitcoin is basically a bearer instrument with this private number.
What's a bearer instrument?
Okay, so a bearer instrument is just well, how do I explain it in English? Well, a bearer instrument is just it's cash basically. It's
Or like
something that you can.
gold is a bearer instrument.
Yes, yeah.
It's not a IOU. It's not
It's not
something.
an IOU. Yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
something that you
It's not
hold, and if you
credit.
hold it, you're the owner,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And in the
It's
case
not
of
credit.
Bitcoin, it's not Bitcoin that you hold the private key, right? And the private key is this offline secret that you can generate completely offline, that you don't have to be connected to the Bitcoin network to
Mhm.
generate. And it gives you access to spend the Bitcoin, which is located on this global distributed ledger, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we're
yeah.
actually not storing, when we take control of our Bitcoin, we're not storing Bitcoin, right? We're storing this secret so that no one else has the secret. Because if they get the secret, then they can spend our Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, we are just locking this Bitcoin with some random password, kind of, and we can unlock it with this password. But yeah, the private key is kind of a very, very long and random password.
Right. And then the so okay. So I think that's relatively. I'm trying to go high level here. I'm trying to go high level
Mhm.
to kind of explain what the goal is here, right? So we have that, and then so one way of doing that, and so that when the user is interacting with Bitcoin, they probably won't see that actual process happening, right?
Yeah,
In Bitcoin, it's usually um, the private key is derived from these words, this seed phrase, right? And the seed phrase
mhm.
is how you basically are keeping that secret safe. It's this word phrase, a set of backup words that you
Mhm.
can go out and keep safe, right? So the question is, how do we keep that secret safe? And how do we interact with that secret when we want to actually spend our Bitcoin, right? Like that is the ultimate, at the end of the day, if we're talking high level, that's kind of what a Bitcoiner is seeking to do, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So high level, most Bitcoiners don't need to understand how a private key looks like, or the specifics of the cryptography, or anything like that. They need to understand that they have these 12, 24 words which they need to keep secret, which basically can be used as their password for their Bitcoin. These 24 words are can give anyone who holds them holds the Bitcoin. If someone gets a hold of them, they hold your Bitcoin. They own your Bitcoin. It's not yours anymore. So you have to be extra cautious with these words. You shouldn't enter them on some random website. You shouldn't put them on an online computer generally. This is why we have this with these hardware wallets, or why we recommend using an air-gapped computer, or whatever you prefer usually. But yeah, you should just be very, very careful with those. It's the basically, if somebody tries to ask you about that, if a website asks you to enter that, especially now with all these phishing attacks, with this ledger hack and all this stuff, people should be very, very careful. They need to understand that these 24 words are their Bitcoin. And if they lose them, if somebody gets access to them, they get access to their Bitcoin.
Right. So the number one rule is to try and you want to keep that secret safe, right? And
Hmm.
the single biggest thing you can do to keep that secret safe is to keep it offline. Because if you have it offline, then at least someone can't hack you through the internet and take your secret. They have to actually come into the physical wherever it's stored and take it from you. So now we have the secret. We're trying to keep the secret safe, but we need to interact with it. We need to be able to send and receive. And this is where your software comes in, the software you've been working on, Spectre Wallet. So
Hmm.
the idea is with Spectre, just a high level brief intro to Spectre is the idea is you run Bitcoin Core, which is your Bitcoin node, and you need a Bitcoin node to interact with the Bitcoin network. If you don't use your own node, then you're trusting someone else's node. And that has two implications. You're trusting them to actually verify that it's real Bitcoin and it's Bitcoin that complies with the consensus rules of the distributed network. And the second fold is you're trusting that node with your privacy. So its best use is to use your own node. So what Spectre does is it acts as an interface between the core node. You run Bitcoin Core and then you run Spectre. And then that interface allows you to basically construct transactions, view your balances, receive, without actually having the secret on the computer, right? It's an interface to the secret that is being stored off of the computer, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just a way to interact with Bitcoin Core with air-gapped signers or offline signers, basically. So if you have these 12 words on this on one of these hardware wallets, for example, then how you interact, actually, how do you use it to sign in transactions, to view your address and view your balances, everything like that. You need a software to use that, actually. So Spectre is this piece between the Bitcoin network and your signer device.
So let's talk a little bit about, what your goals are with Spectre, what your goals have been, and what your goals are going forward. Like, how does Spectre differentiate itself from other wallets that are on the market, and how does it help Bitcoiners use Bitcoin in this more self-sovereign way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the thing with Spectre is that we just try to use the very, very powerful code of Bitcoin Core. So Bitcoin Core is super powerful, it's super well maintained and well reviewed, but the UX is very, very hard to use if you're not an expert, if you don't know command line stuff. And that's especially bad if you want to use it with something like hardware wallets or stuff like that. So what Spectre does, it just gives you a very convenient interface to connect with your hardware wallets and your Bitcoin Core node. It doesn't require you anything like an Electrum server or stuff like that. So you just have your Bitcoin Core node and you're good to go. And I think the goal is just to make it as easy as possible for people to go from running a full node to using a full node. So there's been a lot of talk about people, how they run a full node, but nobody actually uses it. That's something I heard a lot over the years, and that's something I really want to fix with Spectre.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to using Bitcoin and when it comes to life in general, there is a security versus convenience trade-off, and that security versus convenience trade-off. The idea is that if something's more secure, it tends to be less convenient for you. And what I love about Spectre as a user, as a Bitcoin user, as a Spectre user, is that I think it is a fantastic balance of that trade-off. Like, I think it hits the nail on the head where it's pretty easy to use, it's pretty accessible to use, but it doesn't sacrifice security too much. And I think that it provides a very nice, accessible entry-level route into using Bitcoin in a better fashion, while being able to basically upgrade the user through that process. Which is like kind of, I think, exactly what you want to look for in these self-sovereign software libraries. Like this idea that we can provide an entry level thing that is accessible, but then allow the user to get more advanced over time. So
Yeah.
a key aspect of that with Spectre is that Spectre allows you to basically use your node with your hardware wallets, and these hardware wallets are basically these little purpose-built air-gapped computers. And there's a bunch of different manufacturers that make them. You can also use an actual air-gapped computer, which is just an offline computer that's not connected to the internet. And the Spectre team themselves has like a do-it-yourself air-gapped computer that acts as one of these signers as well. So the idea with Spectre is that you can use it with this plethora of signing devices that hold your secret, right? So let's explain. I guess at this point, if you're new to Bitcoin, welcome. It's going to be a fun rabbit hole. I think you're going to have a really good time. Stay humble, just keep learning. Always question everyone. But now we're going to move to the more hot, deep conversation. And let's go hard on multi-sig. What are your current thoughts on multi-sig? How do you see this playing out? And what do you think current Bitcoiners should be thinking about multi-sig and Spectre specifically right now?
Yeah, I think personally, I think multisig is the way to go with Bitcoin in the future for any significant amount. I think there is still some learning curve, and probably there will always be. But I think it's quite good already, and I think people fear it way too much right now, way more than they should, because they are just like heard that multisig, oh, it's super hard, it's super, you could screw it up so badly, but truly you just need to give it a try. I think you don't have to even put real money there, just spin it out and see how it goes. So it's not that scary anymore, I think. You should still obviously be careful and make sure you understand what you're doing before actually starting to use it with real money. But I think it's quite easy already.
So the cool thing about Spectre is I think when you first get started, you can use it single sig, and then you can upgrade to multi sig as you go ahead. And I think one of the key things that a lot of people miss here, and we see this a lot with the phishing attacks, is one of the number one things when it comes to using Bitcoin securely or in a more secure fashion is you need to get comfortable with it. Like, you got to just use it. You got to send, you got to receive, you got to back up, you got to restore, you got to lose a little bit of coin in the process. Like, you got to get really, really comfortable with it. And instead of just like using it once, putting it away, and then looking back at it, in 10 years, like, you got to actually get comfortable with it. So before we jump into why multi-sig over single sig, what is the benefit of multi-sig over single sig?
Well, it basically the biggest thing, in my opinion, is that it allows you to screw up without screwing up, without actually screwing up. So even if you lose one key, even if you get compromised in a way, you can still, it's not catastrophic. You can still recover the funds. There is no risk. So this is the most important thing, I think. Besides, it's more resilient against attacks. If somebody steals your hardware wallet, if your house goes on fire, anything like that, it just gives you way more resilience, basically.
So with single sig, we have one private key, or one master private key. With multi-sig, we basically have a threshold of them. So we can a common setup is like a 3 of 5, and the idea there in the 3 of 5 is you basically need you don't need all 5 of those keys, but you can't just spend it with one key either. So it gives you this creativity, this ability, this redundancy that isn't possible really without Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin's the first money that gives you this capability. Like, gold doesn't have this capability. Cash does not have this capability. You could even imagine a situation where you're storing keys in different countries, in different jurisdictions, maybe in the future on different planets. And an attacker would have to go and actually compromise the acquired threshold of those keys in order to get it. In terms of heirs, you see that situation where you can have one heir hold it, hold one key, a lawyer hold one key, you hold one key. And you can have these situations where you need a group of people to basically come together to spend the funds. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, redundancy, additional security. The main negative that people talk about is complexity. And I think you guys have done a great job so far this year, and other teams in the multi-sig space, to make it way, way, way easier to use multi-sig. And I think that is very underappreciated. Like, people don't realize, just a year ago, we basically only had Electrum for user-facing multi-sig, and now there's like 5 or 6 different projects that are like leading the way here. And shout out to all those teams. That's fantastic. So in the complexity department, the big FUD we always hear, and I think you hear it a lot, is this idea that you need to have this summary file that basically dictates what all the keys are. Let's say you have a 3 of 5. If you lose one of those keys, you're going to need a summary file, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's this an additional backup that you're going to have to download.
Yeah, I just wrote about it basically in a thread on Twitter a few days ago. I even just explained all this thing, because this sounds maybe scary to some that you need this extra thing, but in fact, this is just a file which you can save on paper, on PDF. I haven't heard like about people putting it, etching the QR code of it on a metal, on metal basically. So you can do it in various ways. You can keep it with each private key, sorry, with each mnemonic backup, more correctly. And yeah, and that's it. You don't need to worry about it that much.
And it's technically easier to back up than just a private key because it's not a security risk. It's not a
Mhm.
pure security risk. It's mostly a privacy risk. Someone can look up
Yeah,
your balances and your transactions. They can't actually spend funds with it. That
yeah,
privacy element, if compromised, obviously adds an additional security risk, but it's not actually a funds risk. And the other thing
mhm.
people don't realize is if you lose a key in a single sig setup, you're
You're
fucked
done.
anyway. You're screwed anyway. So the idea here is that in multi-sig, if you don't lose a key, you actually probably don't even need that backup file. That backup file is still best, practice. You should
Mhm.
use that backup. You should have it just in case. But if you don't lose a key, you probably don't even need that backup file. So it doesn't
Yeah.
actually. I don't think it's a real. I don't think it's a valid complaint to multi-sig. Like I think you just need
No,
to
no,
flow for it.
not versus a single sig. So you still get the same thing with 3 of 3 multi-sig, or one of one basically. You just don't get like the full benefit of multi-sig, the full potential, if you don't keep this backup. But you don't have to keep this backup if you secure your keys properly. You just need it in order to get more security out of your setup, out of your multi-sig setup.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, all things equal,
Mhm.
now that we have the UX more laid out, multi-sig for most people does seem like the way forward, right? It's for larger amounts. I guess the main trade-off would be, and maybe it's a little bit more cumbersome. There's more things to secure, right? And I guess
Yeah.
one of the other issues is that there's like this nuance here with like um, what threshold do you use? Do you have a preference on, I'm not asking what you use specifically, but what should people be thinking about when they're thinking about thresholds? Should they be thinking about 2 of 3, 3 of 5,
Yeah, I
there's
think
secure ones out
two or
there.
three or 3 or 5 is the best option. More than 5 cosigners is just basically, it's a non-standard script, so you can have up to 15 with Bitcoin. But more than 5, a lot of mining pools will just ignore the transaction. They will not mine it, so it will be kind of annoying, but again possible if you are like. But I don't think there is any reason, if you're not like a giant company holding billions or something like that. I don't know. There's no point in more than 5 cosigners anyway, I think, for most people. 2 of 3 is great, because you just need 3 devices, you just need 3 locations. The important thing is that just doing multi-sig, and if you're just keeping everything together in the same place, you're making kind of a security theater, and there is not much benefit from using the multi-sig. So you really need to distribute your keys in different places in order to really make it useful and not just a security theater. So
And
yeah, we
if you distribute them poorly, like if you have them, you could actually
yeah.
reduce your security, right? If like
Mhm.
I don't know, like if it's a 3 of 5 and you don't secure 3 of them well because
Yeah,
I
if
don't
you
know.
use, yeah, if you use 2 or 3 and you keep one yourself and give two to some banks or something, then it's in some safe deposit. Then again, you're not really fully self-sovereign, because they can just lock you out of your access to 2 of your keys, and then you're screwed. Um,
So we have services in the Bitcoin space now that offer co-signing services that basically offer a third party to hold one of your keys and sign your transactions for you and hold your hand. Do you have any thoughts on Bitcoiners using those services?
Yeah, ignoring privacy issue, which of course is must be a problem with that. I think it's pretty great. So I think for it's generally so having one key which is not your problem kind of, and you have a company to manage that is quite useful for most people. Again, it saves you the headache of, okay, where am I going to keep it safe somewhere? So you have this company which can't really hurt you, but can help you in recovery. So I think it's generally for most users a good idea if they don't care much about the privacy implications, at least.
That's the key
Um,
trade-off, right?
yeah, it's always a trade-off with everything in securing your Bitcoin. Always a trade-off, no matter what.
And what's the privacy trade-off there for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So the privacy trade-off is that the company knows your multi-sig setup, so they know how much money you own. They have one key, which is also kind of a security implication, but they can't really steal the funds with just one key, so it's not that terrible. But in terms of the privacy, they know everything about the wallet, and if they do also some KYC or anything, then they also know how much you hold and what's your identity.
I mean, I think the way to look at it, right, is I think it's strictly better than a custodial situation, where in a custodial situation, the custodian obviously knows all your privacy. Like you have to trust them with your privacy, but they also have control of your funds. And with this, the two companies that come to mind, Unchained Capital and Casa, they basically hold your hand for you and provide this nice, easy environment where then your trade-off is you're trusting them with your privacy, but they make it easier for you, and it's strictly better than a custodian,
Yeah,
right? It could be a very
sort of
nice,
better than custodian.
it could be a good stepping ground for someone who's finds themselves on an exchange right now, wants to move off of an exchange, and then maybe get used to learning how to use Spectre and doing it in a self-sovereign way going forward. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a very good option. Yeah, so I think obviously I think doing it yourself if you can is way better. But for those who can't or too worried about that for any reason, I think that's pretty good solution.
Awesome. So I mean, what are we looking forward to? 2021. What are we excited about with Bitcoin? Let's transition this conversation a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I'm really excited about Taproot because it means quite a bit for multi-sig privacy. So currently with multi-sig, when you're using it, everybody can know that you're using a multi-sig pretty much. And Taproot improves on that a lot. There is also, when you're using Schnorr and everything, which obviously will take more time than just have Taproot activated on Bitcoin, because wallet softwares will need to support it, so hardware wallets will need to support it, etc., which will take a while probably. But it's still, it all starts with having that enabled on Bitcoin. Besides that,
Taproot this year?
sorry?
You think we're gonna get Taproot this year?
I'm quite sure we will have that, but you can't really tell. I think it's getting like it's pretty much ready. I think.
Do you think
It's really. I think we're going to have that.
do you think users should wait to experiment with multi-sig for Taproot, or should they start today?
No, I don't think they need to wait, because even when, as I said, even if we get Taproot this year, and even that is not sure, then until wallet softwares and hardware wallets actually support Taproot and services support Taproot, then it will take a while. And I wouldn't recommend starting to use Taproot and the implementations from day one, because you're still using something so new with real funds. It's kind of risky, in my opinion, to because there might be bugs. It might not be as well tested with real funds. So I think waiting for that will, if you want to wait a few years, then okay. But you can't expect it like to be a matter of months wait. So I do think people should experiment with multi-sig already if they want to, because just waiting will be a few years, in my opinion.
Especially if if someone can't read code, I think, and verify for themselves. I mean, in general, best practice is probably to take a more wait and see approach on pretty much everything in the Bitcoin space, right? Like let things get tested out, let things get pressure tested, let
Mm-hmm.
real funds be at risk, and see if anyone else loses their money
Yes,
before
yes.
going whole hog into something new in Bitcoin land. Would you agree?
Yes, yes, for sure. Let people risk their money and basically and see, and then if you're not technical, especially, then let people use it and then see how to continue.
And then the other thing is with Taproot, which I don't think, I'm also very much, looking forward to Taproot. I'm a Taproot bull. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than people expect. But I think one thing that people hoping for privacy improvements in the multi-sig front because of Taproot, um, adoption is going to be slow in the beginning. So just the act of using Taproot is going to be a heuristic. That's going to,
Yes, yes.
you're going to be one of the really enthusiast Bitcoiners that are in there in the beginning.
Yeah, that will also be kind of a problem in the beginning, which is another reason you shouldn't wait for Taproot for experimenting with multisig. Because yeah, again, it will be a few years until it's really ready, in my opinion, for real use, both because of development and privacy implications and all that. Basically, will just take a few years.
Um, I'm just all over the place. So I apologize for that, Ben, but I'm enjoying my time with you. And we do have a captive audience here. So just to go back to like a little bit more practical and actionable advice, I tend to tell people, that have never used Bitcoin in a self-sovereign way, to download a mobile wallet like Blue Wallet or Samurai Wallet and send small amount of funds to it. Maybe back it up, delete it, restore it from seed words. Do you agree that that's like a good, nice little dip your toes in the water kind of way of dealing with it, or do you have a different process in mind?
No, I definitely agree with that. I think the first step is to get Bitcoin. If you're a complete noob, then you probably start with an exchange holding it for you or something. Then you probably should start experimenting with some mobile wallet or something like that, and then really get comfortable with it, with the concept of securing your 12 words, the backup, and learn how to restore that, learn how to what is a Bitcoin address, how to handle that, how to send money, how to receive money. Then you can progress to other stuff when you really feel comfortable with that. But the number one thing with Bitcoin security, I think, is just don't screw yourself up. So you're your worst enemy. I've seen way more people lose money because they screwed themselves than I've seen people getting screwed by an attacker. So I would just be very, very careful and make sure that you're comfortable and know what you're doing. So you don't feel, if you feel like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing, then you probably shouldn't do it. Just make sure that you feel that you feel comfortable with your setup, and then you can progress to real funds.
Yeah, I mean, I think 99% of lost Bitcoin has to do with user error, probably. I mean, I don't have that. That number's not a hard number. That's just a gut, but that's what I've noticed from my experience. And it's really easy to just you want to be comfortable. I think ultimately there's no such thing as a perfect setup. Consider using multiple setups, and you just want to get comfortable. You want to get comfortable over time, and not rush into anything. Yeah, it's very easy to basically technical FOMO your way into too complex of a setup, and then you find yourself. In a situation where you're panicking, and in that situation, if you feel like something's going wrong, try and push back against the panic. Take a deep breath. Don't like make rapid moves. Just to take a deep breath, maybe reach out to your Bitcoiner friends, but before you do anything too drastic, because I've seen people then dig themselves farther into
Mm-hmm.
farther into a mess.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So
Just
we
reach
have,
out to somebody and
yeah,
ask questions.
exactly. So we have Caitlin in the comments. She's asking, in terms of signing devices for 3 of 5 Spectre setup, do you have any recommendations or preferences there?
I guess again, it depends on your level of expertise. I think 305, because there are not so many great signing devices for 305, then it's probably more for experts. But generally, the things that I think are pretty nice to use currently, there is obviously Cold Card, which I really like. Kobo is very nice. If you want to build your own hardware wallet, then Spectre DIY is also great for that. And also, it's not yet supported in Spectre for multisig, but there's Bitbox 2, which will be supported for multisig also soon, and have very good multisig support. And besides that, if you feel comfortable with an air-gapped computer or something, then you can use Bitcoin Core on an air-gapped computer, and that's really great too. Or some Electrum or something on a mobile phone even, or something like that as an air-gapped mobile phone signer, like even a Pine phone or whatever. But in terms of hardware wallets, you can reuse, you can use 2 cold cards or whatever, but it's generally not that recommended because you're putting quite some trust in the manufacturer. So yeah, I think Cold Card, Kobo, Bitbox, Spectre DIY, or some air-gapped computer with Bitcoin Core are great options to explore and just see what works for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's some nuance there, right? Because obviously, in a single sig, you have more trust in whatever manufacturer signing device you're going with. And there's ways to reduce that trust, things like providing your own entropy, dice rolls, passphrases, other advanced user features. But one of the beauties of multi-sig is when you combine multiple signing devices, then you reduce the trust in any individual signing device. So if you have a duplicate in there, then obviously there's increased trust in that duplicate. But if the thresholds are 3 of 5 and you only have 2 duplicates, then it still needs to an attacker would still need to compromise a separate device, a third device. But I do tend to agree with you that especially now, when ultimately at the end of the day your security comes down to your signing devices, and it is additive of them combined, but they are your last line of defense. You are kind of stretching yourself a little bit when you get to these larger threshold setups compared to something like a 2 of 3, and that will change. I think we've seen the hardware wallet space, the signing space. Spectre DIY is pretty much brand new. Cold Card is a relatively new entry. Like, we're seeing them improve and standardize so that they can use all these different, that they can use Spectre and plug and play really easily. So I think it will get better very quickly. I think 2021 is really, like, 2020 is the year that multi-sig became easy, and 2021 is the year it becomes mainstream, in Bitcoin at least. And one of the big things that I think a lot of people aren't really watching right now is the old phone as a signer. I think if you can make it pretty easy to use like an old cheap Android phone as one of the signers, then that kind of it's just like a nice little additive bonus. It can scan QR codes and do the PSBT, and I'm kind of pumped on that idea as a concept.
Yeah, definitely. I need to recheck like which options are available for what mobile phones, but that's really a nice option too.
So, I mean, I love this conversation, Ben. I'm really glad you got to join me on this one because I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'm especially a huge fan of your ship posting. I'm getting the wrap up signal here. So I just wanted, do you have any last words for the listeners before we go out?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, and just make sure I really recommend you to at least try out to hold your own keys, to use your own node. Take your time with it, play with it before you're doing anything rushed or anything. But I really recommend to explore that. You really should try to do that.
Big thanks to Bitcoin Magazine. Thank you again, Ben, and cheers to Bitcoin. 12 more years. Let's go.
Cheers. Thanks.